After the FTC was grilled yesterday, had their budget cut by 25%, they have another L to add to their docket. This time, it is the appeal for the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition, meaning that Microsoft is now able to close their acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Let's dive into what happened and what's next right now. So the last video I made was talking about the appeal and what to expect next. And then we got it before the end of the day. It was close to the end of the day, but it said as follows. Basically, the motion for injunctive release, docket entry number 21 is denied. Now, if you don't know what docket number 21 is, that is the FTC's filing requesting an appeal, aka to hold on to that temporary restraining order that Judge Corley implemented, meaning the preliminary injunction would have stuck, but that has now been denied. Just going back in time for a second, the court modifies its TRO such that the temporary restraining order will dissolve at 11:59 p.m. on July 14th, 2023, unless the FTC obtains a stay pending appeal from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. That appeal has now been denied. The TRO will be lifted. Microsoft is free to close, and a lot of people are predicting they will do so Monday. There is still some issues with the CMA, which we'll get to in just a moment. But first, here is what Brad Smith said about the ruling. We appreciate the Ninth Circuit's swift response denying the FTC's motion to further delay the Activision deal. This brings us another step closer to the finish line in this marathon of global regulatory reviews. He is, of course, referencing the ongoing litigation with the CMA that will need to be addressed. Now, before all this happened, Microsoft responded to the FTC filing with the following statements, and I'm pulling these from Tom Warren because I didn't have time to read the 45 pages. Microsoft just filed a response to the FTC's emergency motion at the Ninth Circuit. Microsoft says the FTC claimed emergency is entirely of its own creation, arguing that the FTC didn't seek an injunction through federal court until 6 weeks before deal close. Microsoft also claims the FTC could have filed its request for emergency relief earlier, as Judge Corley sent a copy of the ruling to both the FTC and Microsoft on Monday, July 10th. So they waited several days before they filed the necessary paperwork for the appeal. The court should not mistake the FTC's litigation gamemanship for an emergency meriting this court's deviation from the ordinary appellate process, says Microsoft in its filing. So long story short, the FTC was trying to string this thing out and they have failed. Now, Microsoft also had a little bit of a dig at Sony here and the FTC because, as we've talked about on the channel, the FTC kept talking about Sony. They said Sony like 70% of the time, and they said consumer 30% of the time. It was not a good look. Not a good look for the judge, and now that is why they have not won. Anyway, a stinging response from Microsoft to the FTC's emergency motion. The Xbox maker says the FTC has committed the cardinal sin of antitrust, making a competitive disadvantage from a particular competitor, Sony, with harm. Mistaking a competitive disadvantage for a particular competitor, Sony, with harm to competition and consumers. The FTC now perversely responds that the pro-consumer benefit of increasing access to Call of Duty is somehow anti-competitive because only one subscription service, Xbox's Game Pass, will have Call of Duty post-merger. But that is one more subscription service than the FTC's own expert predicted would have Call of Duty absent the merger. In characterizing this unambiguously pro-consumer outcome as an anti-competitive, the FTC commits the cardinal sin of antitrust, mistaking a competitive disadvantage for a particular competitor, namely the market-dominant Sony, with harm to competition and consumers. Characterizing post-merger expansion of Activision content to new platforms and delivery mechanisms as perhaps bad for Sony, but good for Call of Duty gamers and future gamers. Now, this does leave one remaining question. What happens with the CMA case. Before we get into that, if you've liked my content or you just like it right now, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. And if you already subscribed, hit that like button if you like the video. Thanks for watching, everybody. So here is what is going on with that. We remember Bloomberg talked about how there might be a small divestiture. Well, here's just a reminder about what was said. That could involve selling off the cloud-based market rights for games in the UK to a telecommunications, gaming, or internet-based computing company, said the people who asked not to be identified, discussing confidential planning. A private equity company might also be interested, said one person. You know, that's interesting because that is exactly what Florian Mueller said would happen months ago. That is exactly what Michael Pachter said would happen months ago. That is exactly what Hoag Loss said would happen months ago. Exactly what the three experts we've had on this channel said would likely happen is currently happening. So continuing on, though, what else is going on with the FTC? Well, they talked about this on The Verge. The UK regulator also warned this week that Microsoft's proposals may lead to a new merger investigation and that discussions with Microsoft were at an early stage. The CMA has also issued a notice of extension for its overall investigation into the deal earlier today, moving the date for final undertakings or a final order from July 18th to August 29th. Having read that statement, it's interesting that that happened because the reason that they needed to move things around that drastically is because of a note from Microsoft. What happened this week? Oh yeah, they won the case. So they probably presented that to the CMA, who's sitting on an island right now by themselves as everywhere else has approved it. And here's what it said. The CMA invited written representations on the proposed order from any interested person or persons with a deadline of 1700 UK time on the 9th of June, 2023. The CMA received written representations on the proposed order from interested persons which are currently under consideration. In particular, the CMA received a detailed and complex submission from Microsoft claiming that there are material changes in circumstance and special reasons under Section 41(3) of the Act, which mean that the CMA should not adopt the proposed order. Oh, wow. It's interesting that it took you until July to see that interesting piece of information. And now they have to eat crow a little bit, right? They have to show, oh, look what we made Microsoft do. That's what all these regulators are going to have to do. They have to put the spin on it. They lost, though. That's the story. They did not have a strong case. They lost because they didn't have a strong case. And frankly, they deserve to lose because they didn't have a strong case. Anyway. The CMA considers that there is insufficient time remaining in the statutory period for full and proper consideration of Microsoft's submission on the proposed order. As such, the inquiry group considers that there are special reasons to extend by 6 weeks under Section 41A2 of the Act, the period for the discharge of its duty under Section 41(2) of the Act. The revised period will therefore end on the 29th of August, 2023. However, the inquiry group aims to discharge its duty as soon as possible and in advance of this date. So there is still a possibility that the CMA suddenly, oh, wow, everything's fixed. We'll see what happens. CMA seems to be like still playing hardball, but Microsoft can still close in the United States and all the other places that the deal's been approved and deal with the litigation and whatnot in the other places before they're allowed to close in those territories. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what that means, but I think they close sooner rather than later so that they don't hit that deadline of Tuesday. I'll be letting you know next week. So basically, they've won the big one. They've won the US. They can now close. Will the FTC still have a trial in August to try and stop this thing again and spend more taxpayer money? Hopefully not. I hope it's over. But I'll be right there with you. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell so you don't miss any updates. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button if you're already subscribed. I really appreciate it. A special thank you to all of the members. This is significant. This is no small feat that this has happened. Thank you to the members for supporting the channel as I cover this. This is Microsoft's biggest win yet. Everybody was saying that the deal was dead. A lot of analysts, even on places like CNBC, were saying the deal is likely dead. And that same analyst had to go on television and eat crow. Anyway, it's been really, really interesting to see how it all unfolded. If you want to see what happened with the appeal, you can check out that video right here. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now, everybody.